This red highlighted island you see is called the Great Britain, United Kingdom or UK. Today this country, which is spread over only 94,000 square miles, ruled the world only 100 years ago. From North America to Africa, Middle East, South Asia, East Asia and Australia, it was ruled by it. In human history, maybe some empire has reached this peak that the rising sun is on it and the setting sun is on it. But the most powerful empire of the world has collapsed and has reached this state that today the UK is going through the worst economic crisis in its history. According to the stats of 2024, the debt of the UK is 99.5% of its GDP. However, if you look at its neighboring countries, the debt of Ireland is 43% of its GDP, while the debt of Germany is 64% of its GDP. Gang violence and homelessness is the highest in the last 30 years. In the last 10 years, homelessness in the UK has increased by 50%. High salaries and wages, due to which people from all over the world used to come to London, have been at the level of 2008 for the last 16 years, while the inflation rate is the highest in the last 40 years. Thousands of skilled workers are leaving the UK in search of good salaries. In the sixth largest economy in the world, 1 crore people are living in absolute poverty. 2 million people in the UK go without food for at least 1 day in a month. And if you remove London from the UK, the country is as poor as Mississippi, which is the poorest state of America. NHS, which was an example for the whole world of how such a severe crisis. Let's find out the truth in this video. This story begins in 2016, when the UK decided to leave the European Union. On June 23, 2016, a special referendum was held in which 50% of the British people voted that they did not want to stay in the European Union, and this was the point from which the crisis in the British economy began. This process of leaving the UK's European Union is called Brexit. Now here you need to understand a very important part of history, and that is how and why the European Union was formed. When World War II ended, the European countries realized that if they kept fighting like this, then all their resources and money would just be spent on making armies and defending their borders. If we look at the map of Europe, two things seem very obvious. First, all these countries are small, and second, they are connected to each other. European leaders thought that if we kept behaving like this as separate countries, then our mutual fight would never end, and nor would we ever be able to progress. Therefore, in 1952, 6 countries, Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg and Netherlands, formed the European Coal and Steel Community to massively boost the economies of their countries. These countries benefited a lot from forming this community. For example, after World War II, France needed coal and steel to rebuild its infrastructure, and Germany provided both of these things at very low rates. In this way, France got raw material for very little money, and Germany easily got a buyer of its natural resources, which was very close to it, and therefore the transportation cost was not even equal. Similarly, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands and Luxembourg were able to bring large population of countries to the market. So all in all, these 6 countries were trading with each other without taxes and fighting, and their economy started growing rapidly. Seeing this success, other European countries also started joining this community, and by 1993, 12 countries had joined this community, and the European Union had become the most powerful organization in the world. The world's big superpowers were part of the European Union, and here comes a very important point. The biggest benefit of being in the European Union was that people living in Europe could go to any European country freely. They could do a job there, they could do a business there, they could build a house there. In the same way, commercial goods could go to all countries without any tax or fees. For example, a businessman selling furniture in Greece could easily sell his furniture in the UK, and he did not have to pay any additional tax or fees. Similarly, because of being a member of the European Union, every country had an additional advantage that when they negotiated trade deals with countries outside Europe, this negotiation was not done alone, but the whole European Union did it on behalf of that country. And it is obvious that because of the backing of such a powerful organization, the negotiation power of every country was very high. So when there were so many benefits of being a member of the European Union, then why did the UK leave the European Union? There are 3 reasons for this. The first reason is that the UK felt that the European Union had the greatest advantage of being in the European Union. For example, between 2012 and 2016, Europe caught 750,000 tons of fish from the British Sea, while Britain caught only 90,000 tons of fish from the water of the European Union. Similarly, in 2013, the contribution of the UK to the European Union budget was 17 billion, while in its return, it received only 6.3 billion. So the British felt that all other European countries were taking advantage of them. The second reason was immigration. Countries such as Poland, Czech Republic and Hungary had now joined the European Union, and because Eastern Europe was much poorer than Western Europe, the people here immigrated to the UK. NHS, which was an example for the whole world of how healthcare should be. Today it is in such a state that 8 lakh people are on the waiting list in hospitals. Similarly, in 2010, a civil war broke out in the Arab world and Europe opened its borders to Arab immigrants, and most of the immigrants started heading towards Britain. Here too, Britain felt that the Union's decision had the greatest impact on it. Because of this increasing immigration, the UK's public infrastructure, job opportunities, wages, everything was affected, and a belief began to develop in people that the root of all evil is the policies of the European Union. And in this way, Britishers began to develop feelings of sovereignty. They felt that Britain could make better decisions without the European Union, and they didn't have to bear the burden of their decisions. This was the third reason after which a referendum was held in 2016 and Britain separated from the European Union. But, contrary to expectations, Brexit began to have a very bad impact on the UK. According to a report by the Bank of England, between 2016 and 2021, investment in England fell by 25% after Brexit. And then, with the advent of COVID and the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, this crisis worsened. On one hand, investment was low, and on the other hand, Britain was heavily funding Ukraine against Russia. And on the third hand, due to energy sanctions, it could not even buy oil and gas from Russia. And then, after Brexit, the UK's trade was completely hit. Because before Brexit, the European Union was the UK's biggest trading partner. UK's 48% imports were from the European Union. But at that time, there was no custom duty or tax on this import. But after Brexit, British goods could not come to Europe freely. To correct this mistake, in 2020, Britain signed a free trade agreement with the European Union, according to which now Britain could trade with Europe without any tax or custom duty. But perhaps it was too late. The biggest disadvantage of Britain is that it is a service-based economy, and such economies are very vulnerable in financial shocks and economic crisis. For example, in the 2008 financial crisis, Europe and the Western world were shocked. But China, because it is a manufacturing-based economy, did not suffer that much loss in this financial crisis as America or Europe did. This is why in 2008, where there have been great layoffs in IT industries, companies like Nestle and P&G did not make any difference, because these companies make essential things like water, soap, razor, etc., which people cannot leave so easily. Similarly, the manufacturing sector creates comparatively more jobs than the service sector. Another big disadvantage of Brexit is that there is a huge labor shortage in the UK today. According to 2024 stats, there is a shortage of 30,000 nurses in the UK. On one hand, the currency of the UK is devaluing, investment is falling, money is not coming. And on the other hand, the UK does not have the money to spend on its basic healthcare facilities. And to make matters worse, no one in Europe cares about the UK situation, because the UK had voluntarily separated from the European Union. There are no jobs, inflation is constantly increasing, and as a result, anger is growing among the British nationals. And this anger is sometimes on immigrants and sometimes on people of other nationalities. Such situations have probably never been seen in the UK before. So the UK is in a deep mess. Wrong decisions and selfish thinking have brought Britain to this point today. The circumstances that are going on, it is possible that we will soon see the great British Empire collapse before our eyes. These are all the sources from which we have consulted for today's video. See you in the next video with another interesting topic.